Welcome to our Week 7 video for Design 224 CAD Certification at Ivy Tech Community College. And in this video, we're going to be working through our last practice exam together, or at least the first half of it. We're going to be working through questions 1 through 9 of the Babcock Practice Exam together. And this is an exam that was given to me by another professor from the Bloomington campus of Ivy Tech. And they made up this exam, and I really like it. I think it's representative of a level of difficulty and a lot of the topics that you're going to see on the actual certification exam. So this is the last practice exam that we're going to work through together. So we're going to do questions 1 through 9 together today, and then you can do questions 10 through 19 on your own for homework for this week. Now, the answer key video to this I will still release, even though the actual certification exam is next week. But I'm going to put the answer key to this in the week 8 folder. So that's still going to give you a couple of days before the actual certification exam. Once I release the answer key to this last section, if you want to go back and try it again or fix your answers, you can. But I will put out the answers to this one several days, 4 or 5 days maybe, before we take the actual certification exam. So you're still going to have some time to go back and correct this one before you take the actual test. Now, in that same note, also, I want you to notice that there is a week 7 video called Final Notes to Prepare for the Exam. Make sure you watch this before you come to take the exam. It's not terribly long, but it does give you some of the procedures and policies and kind of what to expect the day we're going to take the test and how things are going to work. So in order to be prepared to come take the test, make sure you watch this video because I explain kind of how the test day is going to work. What you need to do to be ready and kind of what we'll do once you get there before we actually start taking the test. So make sure you watch this final notes video before you come to take the test, and I just wanted to kind of draw your attention to that so that everybody knows it's there and they're ready when they come. Okay, so back to our last practice exam. This is a practical test. There's a couple of multiple choice fill in the blank questions, but mostly it's like the ones we've done before where you take a file and modify it. So there's a couple multiple choice questions, but there are starter files for this test, just like the other ones that we've been doing, that you need to download and extract. So before we can start in on part 1 of the exam, I'm going to download this folder to my desktop. Okay, and then you need to take it, just like always, right click, extract, extract. Okay, and then there you'll have an extracted version of that same folder. So then you can take this and recycle it or get rid of it. As long as you have the extracted folder, that's the one that you need. So going back to Blackboard, we're ready to start this test now, part 1 of 2. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Okay, so in the first one, they say open file CPE-21 formula.dwg. So we'll jump over to AutoCAD and go to open CPE-21 formula. We'll hit open. Okay, and on this one, this is the typical type of question where they want you to make an equation that will find the area of each room, and then you give them the total at the end. And notice in part 4 of this question right here, it says in the new bottom row, merge cells A11 through E11, set the alignment to top right, and enter the text total area. You really don't need to do this because at the end of the day, they're asking you for the total area of the house. You can see I've got the answer in here already, but I want to show you how to get it. So step 4 actually is a complete waste of time. It has no impact on your final answer. All you need is the total area, so don't waste your time trying to merge cells and fix the alignment of the text and then typing in the text. Just go on to the part where you total up the areas and then put the answer in and go on to the next one. So try to do only what you need to get the answer. So for this one, I'm just going to click in here. We've done several types of problems like this throughout the semester. I'm going to say equals, and I've got cell C3 times cell D3, hit enter, and then I'll click on that cell and use the blue diamond to autofill down. So there are all my areas. Now I'm going to click here and insert a row below. And this is the part that I'm not going to waste my time merging these and changing the text. I'm just going to come in here and put in a formula. So I'll say equals sum. And I need to add up cells F3 through F10. Hit enter, and there's my answer, 1,210 square feet. So going back to the test, don't waste your time, or I guess not a waste of time, but don't put in the units. So anytime you see inches or feet or miles on the test, don't put them in. All you put in is the number, and don't add a comma in there like that. Just key in the numbers exactly as they are. Don't put commas in there. But you do want to put decimal points, obviously. Okay, so going on to our next question, open file CPE-20 align.dwg. And they say use the appropriate command to align leaders 1 and 3 horizontally with leader 2 as shown. Use ortho mode to ensure that the balloon alignment is exactly horizontal. Okay, now I'm not actually going to use ortho mode, I'm just going to use polar. As long as I can snap to 0 on polar, then I know that that's going to be the right angle. So you don't have to use ortho. But we're going to be using mleader align as the command, remember, to align these multi-leaders. So we've used that a couple times this semester as well. So I'm going to close this out and open up CPE-20 align, hit open. Okay, and then I'm going to go to multi-leader align, which remember is also right here on your toolbar, or you can type in mleader align. It says select the multi-leaders, so I'm going to choose all 3 of them. Hit enter, and select multi-leader to align to, which is going to be this one. We want to align everything to the second one, and then see how I use my polar tracking to snap to exactly 0 degrees. You could turn your ortho on if you wanted, but you don't really have to. So they are aligned as they requested, and they say what are the x and y coordinates of the insertion point of 1. So they love the insertion point O-snap on the actual certification exam. So I want to make sure you understand what the insertion point is. So going back to AutoCAD, insertion is a different type of O-snap that if someone has created this thing as a block, and remember a block is a saved piece of geometry that you can take and insert into a drawing over and over and over. So a block could be a finished drawing of a sink or a finished drawing of a door, and that way you don't have to redraw it every single time. You just take that block and insert it into your drawing. Now, every time you create a block, you specify an insertion point for that block, which controls where your cursor is going to lock onto when you paste it into a new drawing. The only way you can lock onto that insertion point after you've pasted it into your drawing is if you have the insertion O-snap turned on. So you can see I've got mine turned on already down here. And if I go to my ID command, we can start to kind of search for that insertion point. But if you want to make it a little bit easier, notice how I'm having trouble kind of finding it here because of my other O-snaps. If you go to your O-snap menu, you can turn off everything except for the insertion O-snap. That way you can guarantee you're getting it. So if I go back to ID, there's the insertion point for this one. Now, they kind of use the trick sometimes on the actual certification exam where they will make the insertion O-snap maybe out here in the middle of nowhere so that you can't find it or you can't click on it unless you have it turned on. So anytime they ask you for an insertion point, make sure your insertion O-snap is turned on, and a lot of times I make sure it's the only one I have turned on because they love to kind of play dirty, and they'll put the insertion point out here in the middle of nowhere. They won't match it up to a center point or a quadrant point or an end point. They'll float it out here in the middle of nowhere where you can't get it unless you know this O-snap. So that is your insertion O-snap. So make sure it's turned on, then click on the point, and 2.874, 8.901 are my coordinates. So I'm going to say 2.874 and 8.901. Okay, so we can go on to our next one now. Open the file cpe-20.distribute. So we'll close this out. Okay, so we've got that one opened up, and they say use the appropriate command to distribute the 4 leaders equally between point A and point B. What are the coordinates of the insertion point of the 4? Okay, so we're going to try and take these leaders and space them evenly between these points. So I like to use the divide command for this, which we haven't talked about a lot, but I'm going to go back into my O-snap here and turn on my regular O-snaps that I usually use. I'm going to turn off insertion. I'm just going to draw a line up here And see how I'm not able to snap onto these? Usually that is because you don't have your node OSnap turned on. So if you need to lock onto a point in a drawing, you need to have node turned on. So if I turn on node, now I'm able to lock onto that point. So I'm just going to draw a line from there to there. And then I want to take this line, and you can see here that I want to cut it into 1, 2, 3 even segments. So that's what the divide command is great for, is it will take this and mathematically cut it into 3 even pieces, and then I'll have an OSnap that I can just drop these other ones on top of. So ultimately what I need to do is place this in the correct location. So I'm going to go ahead and just move these out of the way for right now. And I'm going to click this line and just type in divide. And it says select the object, so I'll pick the line, enter the number of segments. I'm going to divide it into 3 even pieces. So I'll hit enter. You can see it adds 2 more little X's here for me. So the divide command is great for stuff like this. And at this point, here's another part where they try to waste your time. Most people would say, okay, well, let me take all these leaders now and match them up to all their little X's and make sure all the arrowheads are all the right places. All you really need is to make sure that the insertion point of 4 is where it's supposed to be. So let's go back and just put this one where it goes and skip the other 3 and save ourselves some time. So I'm going to take this and move it using this point and just drop it right there and make sure that's right. Let's go back and look at the picture. Yeah, that looks good. And then it doesn't even matter where the arrowhead is pointed. As long as I have the insertion point at the right place, that's all that matters. So I'm going to turn all these off again. Turn on the insertion point, and then go to my ID command. And we'll see we get, whoops, we have this just quite in the wrong spot. So watch out for stuff like this. I don't quite have it where it's supposed to go, so let's move that. I got kind of sloppy when I was doing this. So watch for mistakes as you do this stuff. You can see I make them too. And I'm going to go back and turn my node OSnap back on. There we go, that looks better. So now let's try ID again. And we can see the insertion point there, I have 2.10 and 3.57. So I didn't waste my time with any of these other leaders. You don't even need them. The arrowhead on here doesn't matter. All you're trying to do is get this in the right place so you can look up the coordinates for that insertion point. Okay, so I'm going to key in 2.10 and 3.57, and we're on to the next question. Open the file CPE-28 layers. Okay, so there's our file. We'll open that up. Okay, and back looking at our question here. In paper space, adjust the S-section-glam layer to show in the viewport. What are the coordinates of point A in the layout in paper space? Okay, so we need to turn on this layer in our viewport, and then we need to give them the coordinates in paper space of this point. So we can see the layer is missing right now. So I'm going to go to my layer properties manager, starting with, and just see what's kind of going on in here. And kind of drag these out so we can see. So here is whether or not things are frozen in the viewport, and then over here I can see whether or not they're frozen in model space. So this is kind of where they trick you, is if you go to model space, you can turn that layer on here, but you can see it right there. But if I go back to my layout, notice it's not there. So this is where they trick you. Do you know the difference between layout and model, and kind of how the layers work there? So even if I turn the light bulb on, which is what most people do, it's there, but I can't see it in layout, and they ask me for the dimension in paper space, not in model space. So this is where they would trick you, is most people would give the dimension to this point in model space and give them the wrong answer, and then go on to the next question and they think they got it right. So stay in your layout tab, and remember, in your layer properties manager, you can set layers to be frozen in model space, or you can set them to be frozen just in a viewport. So here's my viewport freeze, and you can see that that same layer is frozen in my viewports, and that's why I can't see it. So if I turn it on in both of those places, and then let's type in REGEN for regen, and this is being stubborn, so let's try it again one more time and turn everything on. So those are both on. Okay, and it didn't take that, so let's turn that on again and close that out, and now we see it. Okay, so make sure your viewport is deactivated, so I'm going to say P space for paper space. So don't shift anything around in here because that's also going to change your answer of where this point is. So now that I've got that, I'm going to type in ID and grab the endpoint of that line, and I have my X is 3 3/16 and my Y is 3 1/16. And it says, do not include inch marks when typing in your answer. Use a backslash for fractional inches, example 1.5. So ours was 3 3/16 and 3 1/16. Okay, moving on, question 5. So we're going to open up this file, CPE 14 pedit. So we're editing polylines here. So we're looking probably at our good old pedit command again. So we'll open that up. Yes. Okay, so we have something that does not really resemble the picture here. They say use the pedit command to achieve the polyline shown below the center line. Mirror the result using the center line as the mirror line. Okay, so looking at this, I'm going to go into pedit and choose this. And I'm going to start by decurving this because we can see they have straight lines in the object shown. Okay, so I've got the bottom now, and then I'm going to go to close and close in the top of it. Now we can take this and use the mirror command and use our mirror line with our O-snaps. And I'm going to keep the original. Okay, so there's our object. So I decurved it and then closed the shape using the pedit command, and then used the regular mirror command to mirror it over. And then they say, what are the coordinates of point 1, of this point right here? So I'm going to go to the ID command, choose that point, and I have 25.06 and 27.79. So this isn't too bad. Pretty easy question if you are good with the pedit command. And there are some like that. Not every question takes you a long time. And not every question is tricky. It just depends what you're good at and what you're fast with. All right, so we're going to open up this file, CPE-15 circumference. And remember, you want to try to move as quickly as you can through this part as far as opening up files. All right, use appropriate commands to find the answers to the following questions. What is the circumference of circle 1? What is the total area of circles 3 through 8? So this is a really easy question if you've been following along this semester and you know the properties menu, the ID command, the hatch command. So I can easily find the circumference of this circle in the properties menu. It's going to be in there just ready for me. And the total area of circles 3 through 8, I can just do a hatch and quickly hatch these in and then go to my properties menu or my list command and just read out that area. So this should be a pretty easy one. So I'm going to click on this circle, go to properties. My circumference is 6.8770. And then the total area for circles 3 through 8. I'm just going to grab my hatch command and make sure that I'm hatching in the correct ones here. So let's go back and look at the diagram again. So basically all the small circles we're going to hatch in. So just make sure you pick them all. And then I'll just choose that and maybe do the list command on these. And we can see the area there is 2.0500. Okay, so we've got that. And moving on to our next question. All right, so we're going to open up this perimeter file and use a polar array on the gear tooth so that there are 24 total teeth around the center point. Don't make the array associative. And then we're going to join all the lines and arcs into a single polyline, and then they want the length of that polyline. So polar array, turn it into a polyline, and then give them the length. So easier said than done, but let's see what we can do here. So let's close this out. And open up this folder, this file. Okay, so they've got the gear partially drawn up here, so I'm going to take this and polar array it. And this is going to be my center point right here, so I need to turn my center O-snap back on since I've been messing with my O-snaps as I go through this test. And you'll do that on the actual test. You're going to be changing your O-snaps around for every particular problem. So some problems you'll want certain ones on, other problems you want different ones. So you're going to be in that O-snap menu all the time. So my number of items they said is 24, so I'll change that. And that looks good, so I'll close it out. And now I've got to take this and turn it into a polyline. So let's see, just for kicks right now, let's see what happens if I do a list on this. Okay, they don't give us the total length there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and explode it. Remember that the explode command on an array will break it apart into all of its individual lines and arcs and small pieces. So before I can turn this into a polyline, I need to break it so it's not an array anymore, so that it's just individual elements. So I'm going to click on it to select it, and then I'm going to leave my array tab up here at the top and come down to my home tab, and then hit the explode button, or you could also just type in explode on the keyboard. But I'm going to hit that, and notice when I do that, it loses the intelligent property that it understands where it's an array. So if I click on this, it doesn't know that I ever arrayed it at any point. It just thinks they're all individual line pieces now, which is great because that's what I want. So I'm going to get rid of this circle because it's kind of in the way. I really don't need it. I just need to join these all into a single polyline and figure out the perimeter. So I'm going to go to P-Edit and select multiple. Choose all the lines and objects, hit enter, and convert them to polylines, yes. And I want to join them. The fuzz distance I'm going to say is 0, and then hit escape. And now if I click on this, I should have a continuous polyline. So at this point, if I go to list, my perimeter is 15.2367 right there. So on this one, you have to do the array command, then you have to know how to explode the array after you create it, and then finally you have to know how to use P-Edit to convert all those objects into polylines and then join them, and then the list command to look up the perimeter. So none of these steps are really hard, but the trick is you have to know how to do all of them to get the answer. So if you can do all those things in a row, then this won't be too hard of a question. So I'm going to say 15.2367 for that one. Okay, so we have 2 questions left. On question 8, they say open CPE 17 dim style. So we'll go ahead and open that up. Oops. Okay, there's our correct drawing. All right, so this is probably another dimension style question or baseline dimensions, I would guess. Just looking at this picture, they're going to have us do a baseline dimension. Okay, so use the dimension style manager to change the baseline spacing in the standard dimension style to 0.5. Leave all other settings as they are currently set. Then we're going to use dim baseline to finish the dimensions. What are the coordinates of 0.1? So they love these dimensions, baseline continuous, the dimension style manager. But remember on this, all I need to do is get this point. So I don't have to do any of these dimensions. These are all a complete waste of time. So we're just going to do the top 4. So let's go to the dimension style manager, change baseline spacing to 1/2, and then we'll just throw these in there and look up that point. So I'm going to type in dim style on the keyboard, go to modify. My baseline spacing right here, I'm going to set to 0.5, hit OK. I'm going to, just to be sure, highlight that and say set current and close. Now I'm going to go up to my baseline dimension tool. If I go to my annotate tab, we can find it right here pretty easily, or you could type in dim baseline also. I'm going to choose this as my base dimension, and make sure you choose the right side of it. There we go. So I'm working off of this line, don't work off of this one. And now I can just click these endpoints. So 1, 2, 3. And then you can check to make sure that these numbers are the same also as what you see in the finished drawing. So remember that they will usually show you a picture of the finished file with the correct answer modeled. You just have to look up the number. So make sure your numbers match here, and that's kind of a clue that you did the problem right. Now, mine match, so I'm just going to look up the coordinates of that endpoint, and make sure you don't get the arrowhead. They're asking you for this point up here. So when I click on that, I get 0.000 and 5.401. All right, so that's question 8, and we're on to our last question here, which this is one of their favorite types of questions. Match the plot area option with the description of what it plots. So we've done a couple of these as well. Looking at this, plots what is currently shown on the screen, plots to the outermost boundary of all objects, plots everything within the dashed plot margins, plots an existing named view within the drawing, plots everything within a crossing window that you create. So I'm going to work with the easy one here first, which I know that this is always a crossing window is when I draw the window in my print menu. So I know that one is E. Plots an existing named view within the drawing. Well, that would make sense if that was view. So if I created a view and named it and then printed it, that would be this one. Plots what is currently shown on the screen. That would match up with the description of display. Plots to the outermost boundary of all object geometry in paper space or model space. That would be the extent of my model. So it prints out as far as what I have drawn. And at that point, I'm hoping that my answer for C logically matches up to layout because that's all I have left. And C says plots everything within the dashed plot margins, which that is what my layout would do. So I'm going to say C for that one. So I'll save all my answers, and then you can submit them. So that's it for our last walkthrough together for part 1 of the Babcock Practice Exam, questions 1 through 9. So remember, your homework for this week is to finish 10 through 19, and I will still release a video answer key for the second half of this exam. I'll try to get it to you 4 or 5 days before the actual certification exam takes place, so you can work through these last several questions together with me and make sure that your answers are correct. But that's it for this video, so go through now and try it again on your own and put in the correct answers now that you've seen me work through it. And hopefully this video is helpful to you as you go through and try these questions on your own now. So remember, if you have any questions, you can always email me. My email is jhamilton83@ivtech.edu, or you can stop by my office, room T316 of the Glick Technology Building, and I will see you next week for our actual certification exam. Good luck.